Bible in a year, making it easier to understand.
And that is exactly why the donkey matters. I'm telling you, Steph, if you don't get the donkey, you don't get the heart of the king. It's not just about livestock. It's about a total psychological renovation.
Okay. Slow down. Welcome back, everyone, to Bible in a Year, making it easier to understand. I'm Stephanie, and that high-energy voice you just heard belongs to my husband, John. We are on day 39, and John has apparently been drinking the extra bold roast this morning because he is already fired up about ancient animal husbandry laws.
It's the Mishpatim, Steph. I can't help it. We're in Exodus 22, 23, and 24 today, and I know what some of you are thinking. You're looking at these verses about bride prices, sorceresses, and borrowed oxen, and you're thinking, John, I'm trying to find God, and you're giving me a city ordinance manual from 1400 BC. But stay with me.
I'll be honest, I felt that law fatigue too when I opened the text this morning. We just had the 10 Commandments, which were so grand and universal. Now we're getting into the weeds. It feels like we went from the Constitution to the fine print on a rental agreement.
That is the perfect analogy. But here's the deal. Israel has been in Egypt for 400 years. They don't know how to be a nation. They only know how to be slaves. They've spent centuries under the survival of the fittest rules of Pharaoh. God is taking the Egypt out of the people. He's retraining their brains to move from a slave mentality to a higher level of freedom.
So, you're saying these laws aren't just a random list of do's and don'ts? They're actually a blueprint for a brand new kind of society?
Exactly. Imagine you've lived in a high-stress, cutthroat corporate environment for 20 years where everyone is backstabbing each other to get a promotion. Then, suddenly, you're moved to a nonprofit in a small town where everyone shares their tools and looks out for each other. You wouldn't know how to act. You'd still be hiding your stapler and BCCing your boss on every email just to protect yourself. That was Israel. They were BCCing their survival.
That makes sense. These Mishpatim, which just means statutes or judgments, were meant to ensure they wouldn't do to others what the Egyptians had done to them.
Boom. It's the empathy mandate. Look at Exodus 22, verse 21. It says, "You shall not wrong a sojourner or oppress him, for you were sojourners in the land of Egypt." God is basically saying, because you know exactly how it feels to be the outsider, you are now the world's leading experts on why the outsider needs protection.
And it's not just the foreigners. He puts a massive neon sign over the widow and the orphan. In verse 23, he says if they cry out to him, he will hear them. In the ancient world, if you didn't have a man to protect you, a father or a husband, you were basically invisible. You had no standing. But God is saying he's becoming their next of kin.
Right. And compare this to other cultures at the time. We looked at the Sumerian laws and the Code of Hammurabi in our research. In those codes, laws were often about property value. If a man seduced an unwed daughter, it was seen as a financial attack on the father's investment, his bride price.
Wait, so the daughter was just an asset?
In the ANA context, essentially. But in Exodus 22, verses 16 to 17, God starts shifting the focus. Yes, there's a bride price, but there's a requirement for the man to take responsibility and marry her, and the father has the right to refuse to protect the daughter's future. It's subtle, but God is moving from property to personhood.
But what about the sorceress in verse 18? You shall not permit a sorceress to live. That feels incredibly harsh. How do we explain that to someone today?
It's definitely a no-jargon zone moment. Think of it this way. Sorcery in that culture wasn't just a hobby. It was an attempt to manipulate spiritual powers that were in direct rebellion against God. It was like a citizen during a war trying to set up a private communication line with the enemy's high command. It's treason. God is setting up a community where he is the only source of power and protection. To go to a sorceress was to say, God, you aren't enough. I'm going to try to hack the universe on my own terms.
Okay, so it's about total loyalty to the covenant king. But then we get to property, lending money to the poor and not charging interest. And that part about the cloak? If ever you take your neighbor's cloak in pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. In what else shall he sleep?
Here is the modern mirror for that. Imagine you're a payday lender. In our world, the goal is often to make a profit off someone's desperation. But God says no. If you lend to my people, you aren't a moneylender. You're a brother. Taking a cloak as collateral, was like taking someone's only blanket in the middle of a winter camping trip. God is saying, I don't care if they owe you money. Their dignity and their physical warmth are more important than your ledger.
It's a people over profit policy. I love that. It's God establishing that human life has inherent dignity because we are made in his image, even the debtor, even the foreigner.
Exactly. And this transition is huge. They are moving from being defined by what they can produce to who they are.
Well, I think that's a good place to pause. My coffee is cold, and we still have to get to the sabbatical years and that incredible sapphire vision on the mountain.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're talking about the digital detox of 1400 BC and why God is a fan of gradual victory.
We'll be right back. And we are back. We've got our fresh coffee, we've stretched our legs, and we are diving straight into Exodus chapter 23. John, I have to tell you, while you were checking your emails during the break, I was looking at these verses about the sabbatical year, and it hit me. This is so countercultural, not just for them, but for us.
Oh, it's the ultimate anti-hustle manifesto, Steph. Seriously, we live in a world of infinite scroll and 24/7 productivity. If you aren't grinding, you're falling behind, right? But look at Exodus 23 verse 10 and 11. God tells them that for 6 years they should sow the land and gather the produce, but in the 7th year, you shall let it rest and lie fallow.
And the plain English version of that is basically just stop.
Exactly. Stop, quit, cool it. In Hebrew, they use two incredible words here, shamat and natash. Now here's the kicker. Shamat literally means to release or to let it drop. Think about that. It's like you're holding on to your career, your bank account, your side hustle, and God says, okay, now let it drop.
That sounds like my nightmare. If I just drop my responsibilities, everything falls apart.
That's the slave brain talking, Steph. That's the Egypt in us. We think we're the ones making the world go round. But God uses that second word, natash, which means to leave it alone or, and this is the beautiful part, to entrust to. It's not just being lazy. It's a deliberate act of trusting that God is the actual owner of the land. It's like saying, God, I'm perfectly capable of planting this corn, but I'm going to natash it. I'm going to entrust my survival to you for a whole year.
It's the digital detox of the ancient world. We're so afraid that if we turn off our phones for a weekend, we'll miss something vital or lose our verified status. But God is telling them that their worth isn't in their yield. And look at the why in verse 11. So that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat.
Yes, it's a built-in welfare system. In our modern mirror, this is like a major corporation saying, hey, every 7 years, we're going to stop charging for our product and just leave the warehouse doors open so anyone who is struggling can come and help themselves. It's insane. No CEO would ever agree to that. But the King of Kings says, the land is mine. You're just the tenants.
It's so radical. And then he links it right back to the weekly Sabbath in verse 12. Even the ox and the donkey get to be refreshed. I love that word, nafash. It means to breathe or to take a soul rest. God cares about the mental health of the livestock.
He really does. And it's a check on our greed. If we can't stop, we're slaves again. If we have to work 7 days a week to feel secure, we haven't actually left Egypt.
Okay, let's talk about these 3 annual festivals in verses 14 through 17. The Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Harvest, and the Feast of Ingathering. To a modern listener, these sound like boring church potlucks. But in our research, we found they were more like national family reunions or massive music festivals.
Totally. Imagine Coachella, but instead of influencers, it's the whole nation of Israel. And instead of a headlining band, it's a celebration of God's rescue mission. The Feast of Unleavened Bread commemorates the haste of the Exodus. Don't forget where you came from. We left in a hurry because God moved fast. The Feast of Harvest is about giving the first fruits of the labor. Give God the best of your first paycheck, not the leftovers of your last one. And the Feast of Ingathering celebrates the end of the agricultural year. God provided all year. Let's throw the biggest party of the century to say thanks.
I love the idea of first fruits. It's so easy to give God what's left over at the end of the month after the Netflix subscription and the car payment. But he says, bring the best of the first fruits to the house of the Lord. It's an act of pre-gratitude.
Okay, but Steph, we have to talk about the weirdest law in the whole chapter. Verse 19. You shall not boil a young goat in its mother's milk. Every time I read that, I just think, why? Who was doing that? And why did God need to write it down?
Well, it turns out there's a really dark historical reason. In the 1920s, archaeologists found these tablets at Ras Shamra, ancient Ugarit, and they found descriptions of this exact ritual. The Canaanites would boil a kid in its mother's milk and then sprinkle the broth on their fields as a magical charm to make the crops grow faster.
So it was fertility magic?
Exactly. It was a fertility hack. But look at the symbolism, John. Milk is meant to nourish life. It's the source of newborn life. To use the very thing meant to sustain the baby goat to cook it is, as one scholar put it, symbolically grotesque. It perverts the order of nature. God is saying, I am the source of life. You don't need these cruel, magical life hacks to get a harvest from me. Just trust the covenant.
Wow, that's a no-jargon lesson in being pro-life. Don't use the things of life to promote death.
And that leads us to the final part of chapter 23, where God promises to send an angel before them. Verse 21 is so intense. Be attentive to him and listen to his voice, for my name is in him. John, who is this? It's not just a regular messenger, right?
This is one of the hidden gems of the Old Testament. This is a theophany, a visible manifestation of God. See, in the ancient Near East, if a king sent a royal escort with his name, that person had the king's full legal authority. But this angel can forgive or not forgive sins, which is something only God can do. Most theologians believe this is the pre-incarnate Christ, the Word of God before he was born in Bethlehem, guiding them through the desert.
So Jesus was literally walking them to the promised land?
Yes, he's the messenger with the name, and he tells them he won't give them the victory all at once. Verse 30 says he'll drive out the enemies little by little.
Why not just zap them all at once?
Because he wants them to grow into the land. If it happened overnight, the wild animals would take over and the land would go desolate. Here's the modern mirror. We want our spiritual growth to be a software update. One click, and we're perfect. But God says, I'm doing this little by little. I'm building your character so you can actually handle the blessing I'm giving you.
I needed to hear that today. The gradual victory isn't a delay. It's a development plan.
Exactly. Well, that wraps up our rhythm of release. When we come back for our final segment, things are going to get blue, like sapphire blue.
Don't go anywhere. Segment 3 is next. And we are back. John, I feel like we should lower our voices for this part. We're in Exodus 24. The covenant is about to be sealed, and it starts with blood. Moses sprinkles half of it on the altar and half of it on the people. To us, well, it's a horror movie image. But to them?
To them, it was a signature. In the ancient world, you didn't just sign a contract with a pen. You cut a covenant with a sacrifice. By sprinkling the blood on the altar and then on the people, Moses was saying, both parties are now bound together. One life, one blood. If one breaks this, their life is forfeit. It's the ultimate verified account status.
And the people's response is so famous. In Hebrew, it's Nesa v'nishma. Most translations say, we will do and we will obey. But I found a deeper meaning in the research.
Tell me, what's the plain English for Nasa v. Nishma?
It literally means, we will do and we will understand. They were committing to the action before they even fully understood the depth of the laws. It's like, when you get married, John, we said I do to the covenant of marriage. We didn't fully understand what 20 years of mortgages and sick kids and life would look like. But we did the doing part first, and the understanding followed the commitment.
Wow, that is such a good analogy, Steph. We don't wait for a 100% philosophical comprehension before we obey God. We do, and in the doing, we hear his heart.
And then Moses, Aaron, and the 70 elders go up the mountain, and they see God. Verse 10 says, under his feet there was the likeness of a pavement of sapphire, clear as the sky itself. John, the research on this sapphire pavement is mind-blowing.
Oh, I saw this. In Hebrew, it's livnat hasapir. Livnat comes from the word for brick.
Yes. Think about it. What were they doing in Egypt for 400 years? Making bricks of mud and straw. It was the symbol of their slavery. But now, under God's feet, they see bricks of sapphire. It's like God is saying, I'm taking your history of slavery, the mud bricks of your pain, and I'm transforming them into the sapphire foundation of my kingdom.
That is a 10 out of 10 modern mirror right there. Whatever mud bricks you're making right now, whatever grueling, thankless work you're doing, God can turn that into the very pavement of his presence. It's a construction project for the soul.
And then they eat. They behold God, and they ate and drank. Why is that the climax?
Because a meal is the ultimate sign of hanging out, of community. You don't eat a meal with a judge who just sentenced you. You eat a meal with a friend or a king who has welcomed you into his family. It's the covenant meal. It points forward to the Last Supper and even further to the wedding feast of the Lamb. God isn't just a voice from a cloud. He's a God who wants to share a table with us.
From the blood on the altar to the meal on the sapphire, it's all about proximity. God is making it possible for sinful people to live near a holy God.
Exactly. And that's our day 39. We went from, how do I treat my neighbor's donkey, to, I'm eating dinner with the creator of the universe. It turns out how you treat the donkey actually matters for how you sit at the table.
That's the text message summary right there. The way we handle the mud of everyday justice prepares us for the sapphires of God's presence.
Love it. All right, guys, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Our specific action step for you today: think of one mud brick in your life, something boring or hard, and ask God to show you how he's turning it into sapphire. And maybe, just maybe, go do one nice thing for your enemy's donkey today.
We'll see you tomorrow as we look at the blueprints for God's mobile headquarters, the tabernacle. You don't want to miss it.
See you then.